What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you, and one that I have been excited about since it was announced. Namely because this band is flat out awesome, and I think they're on a comeback tear once again. We are going to go over the latest offering from Benediction, Ravage of Empires. This comes out on the 4th of April on Nuclear Blast Records. This band formed in 1989 in England. This is their 9th album overall. We reviewed their last album, Scriptures, which came out in 2020, which, man, it does not feel like it came out that long ago, namely because I still jammed the shit out of that one. For me, that was my comeback album of 2020. I've been listening to this band for years. I got into them with the Grand Leveler, and then I discovered the absolutely amazing Transcend the Rubicon, which I would say is like a fucking god tier, like UK death metal album. And yes, for those that don't know, this is just flat out old school death metal, fiercely thrashy. Pretty much everything about this just still reeks of like just killer 90s death metal. This is their second album since the return of the mighty Dave Ingram on vocals, which I say kind of marked a comeback arc for this band. Leading up to Scriptures, I watched a lot of interviews with the band, and even the band said that their work, before Scriptures, like their, run of albums they had, the ones with Dave Hunt and even some of the ones with Ingram before he left initially, they really didn't think they were that up to snuff, which I think was a really cool and very humble take for the band, because they went back, they listened to their stuff, and they were like, you know what? We could do better. And honestly, I think that inspired them to make one of the best albums of their career with Scriptures. And I think that carried over to this one, because honestly, this album might be just as good, if not better, than Scriptures. Everything about this album is energetic, full throttle, right from the rip, a carrion harvest. You get into just machine gun riffs, thrashy energy. The songs are explosive, they're rowdy, loaded with just absolutely killer riffs. And then Dave Ingram's signature roar. I know in the last one we compared him to Sweetums the Muppet, which, I mean, it still kind of works. He's got kind of a roar voice, but he just has a commanding presence. You can still draw a lot of comparisons to like Barney Greenway in terms of like Barney's earlier delivery, especially when he was in Benediction, and even on like, Harmony Corruption and Utopia Banished. He just had that pronounced roar. And the fact that both of them have a thick Birmingham accent that kind of comes through in that, and I just feel like it adds just this awesome little bit of flavor to it. But this whole album is about riffs and energy, good solid pockets of groove. Everything on here is just very stripped down to its bare essentials, and it flat out works. This is no frills death metal done at a high level with a good focus on just maintaining momentum through the songs, because this album flows well. Great transitions, nothing too flashy, nothing too intricate, honestly, but it's just got this punch to it, and it has this energy. This was hard as fuck to review because I wanted to headbang all while I was trying to take notes. That's difficult. I had to fight a lot of fucking urges. With all the thrashy energy and the nasty groovy breakdowns in here, it is almost impossible just to not move while listening to this. One thing that is slightly different on here, and I think honestly a little bit better, and this was maybe a complaint on the last one, at least for some, the production here, I think, is a little bit better. It's a little bit grittier and heavier overall. Now, this was done by the same guy, Scott Atkins, formerly of Stamping Ground, and I think he did a great job. And probably the biggest thing on here that I think fans will probably like more on this one versus the last one is the drum sound. A lot of people complained about the drum sound sounding too mechanical, too modern sounding, like they were very compressed. Here they sound a lot beefier. The snare just has this awesome thwack to it. And then everything else is just mixed pretty much perfectly. The guitars have this great tone. Like, it is a rich, thrashy, chunky sizzle to it. Dave's vocals are right out in front where they should be, and he sounds absolutely amazing on here. And even the bass, and this is a new bassist on here, Nick Sampson. It's prominent, it fills up the sound. You don't get a lot of isolated sections of bass on here. A lot of this is really driven by the riffs and the drums. Frequently you're getting into thrashy D beats, some more punky D beats, some good double time rhythms, a lot of the same stuff that you would hear on an Obituary album, a Jungle Rod album, a Bolt Thrower album. And these are things I would never complain about, because they're kind of at the core of just, everything I like about old school death metal. The first 3 tracks in here absolutely explode with energy. A Carrion Harvest, Beyond the Veil of the Grey Mare, and Genesis Chamber, which Genesis Chamber just absolutely rips. There's a halftime little like groove in there with the dinner bell ride. Instantly just sets me off. And in terms of like song structure, they're not doing anything really different. They're just kind of just doing everything right within their wheelhouse. A lot of this is very fast paced, very energetic. You do have some more like mid-tempo or even like groovier songs like Deviant Spine, Psycho Sister, which I don't really understand that song title. I know I could probably like talk a little bit of shit about my sister right now, but she might actually watch this and then threaten to cut me. Just kidding. Love you, sis. Don't cut me. Now, I'm sure you guys have like probably heard us like complain about By the Numbers albums, but By the Numbers albums can work as long as you maintain a level of energy throughout it. And again, this album flows beautifully. It's like 47 minutes long, but honestly, there's really no lulls in energy. The breakdowns happen when they should. A lot of the songs, again, being more up-tempo and energetic. This doesn't sound like an old, tired band at all. And I probably said the same thing about Scriptures, too, but this is them kind of like doubling down. Like, whereas Scriptures was the comeback album to, prove the world that they can do it again and come back with like something absolutely fucking furious. This is them reinforcing that, like, yeah, we're not fucking done yet. We still have a ton of riffs, and yeah, we can even kind of make it heavier and more focused, because honestly, I do feel like this album is a little bit heavier than Scriptures. Every song feels like it's got a mission statement to go for the throat and get people moving. Not saying that Scriptures didn't do that, but here it just feels a little bit punchier, a little bit meaner. I got that right away when I heard the lead-off singles, Crawling Over Corpses and Engines of War, both of which are just monstrous singles and totally represent the album in a great way. Like, it kind of just showcases almost everything that they do really well in here. Because while they didn't really change much in terms of their approach from the last one, albeit maybe like beefing it up a little bit, they do pepper in like a little bit of nuance to the songs to kind of separate them up a little bit. Beyond the Veil of the Grey Mare actually has some cool like dissonant melodies in there to kind of keep it a little bit spooky. And there are frequently moments where they use like really solid descending just like lead harmonies. Engines of War and In the Dread of the Night both have like these just creepy, crawly riffs. I mean, you've heard them a dozen times on like albums like, Cause of Death and Leprosy, but they are effective still. And In the Dread of the Night actually had some like legit surprises that I really wasn't expecting. I would say it's one of the more dynamic songs in the sense where it definitely has that old school death metal core at it, which, I mean, every song in here definitely does. But I was a little surprised to hear some flat out like blackened strumming in there. Like, there's just a section on there where it's a little bit more distant, a little bit more cold, and kind of like not them in a way, like, because usually it's a lot of like machine gun chugging, and then when you get down to like the groovy sections, it's just a fucking beatdown riff. But here it's a little bit more, again, sinister, cold, and blackened, and honestly, Dave's vocals work really well over that. He can sound absolutely fucking ferocious at times. Even his spoken word on here and the maniacal laughs, I think, are just great touches on here. And there's not really like a lot of like extra atmosphere in here at all, so just hearing those like little bits where he's kind of like hamming it up a bit, love it. But towards the back half of that song, they get into like a chuggy triplet breakdown groove that feels a little bit more in line with like stuff that Suffocation does. So, I mean, it just kind of beefs up the heavy in a totally different way. Drought of Mercy has a more doom-laden chorus on it. It's really effective. You just get these like droning single chords that are more menacing and dark, and then you break into the just chuggy double time awesomeness that the song just pretty much radiates. And then the finality of Perpetuation, there's some flat out hardcore riffs in there. You get the big down-picked ones, and when the breakdown comes in, like, honestly, if Dave Ingram wasn't singing over it, you could get Carl from fucking Earth Crisis, or I would even say Jamie Jocelyn from Hatebreed, and that moment would totally fit. It's kind of got like this hardcore bounce to it. This album's aggressive across the board, but that was like a notably different kind of aggression. And those moments showcase a little bit of riff variety, which I will say that this album is very just straight ahead. The riffs are meaty, they're very simple, but they're very effective. Like, nothing on here is very flashy at all, but it's powerful. It makes a statement. The riffs drive the songs. The drums are constantly going. It's just a very energetic listen, and there's nothing really like wasted again in terms of momentum between the tracks or even within the songs. A lot of the transitions are like the old school tropes, like isolate a riff, do a lot of floor tom hits, build up the energy, get into that breakdown groove, and then get back out into like a D-beat stomper and just watch the meatheads beat the shit out of each other in the pit. If I were to make any complaints about this, they're kind of minimal. One, there's, I would say, like basically no solos on here. Like you do get a couple of lead melodies, but at the same time, the riffs are so strong. I honestly didn't really care. Crawling Over Corpses has like a little bit of a lead. It's just kind of like a lead melody, really. Like it's not getting anything shreddy. It's just kind of supporting the main riff. But outside of that, yeah, you get some harmonized riffs. And again, like those really cool descending old school death metal harmonies and such. And I mean, honestly, that was kind of all I really needed to keep my attention. The other complaint, and again, it's kind of like just like a minor one, is I like this album art, but it looks a little too similar to Scriptures. It's almost the same fucking color scheme. It's cool looking. It's awesome. There's definitely empires being ravaged on it, but I don't know, like maybe a different color scheme might have just made this one stand out a little bit more. But again, that's just fucking nitpicking. But that's it. Like, and those aren't really like big complaints. I legit have no real big complaints about this. This is another awesome chapter in this band's comeback arc. And with this entry, I am even more excited to see them at MDF this year. Yeah, this is a flat out banger, and I'm gonna go ahead and give it 4 stars. We're bordering on that 4.5. I've only had 2 listens. Both of them involved a lot of headbanging, but I'm not pulling the trigger on a 4.5 yet, but man, this is really good. It's just riffy, fun. I enjoyed the shit out of this album. Like every song had a good punch to it. This is one of those releases that kind of like brings me back to when I was first getting into like more extreme metal as a kid, like as a teenager. If I had heard something like this back in like 95 or 96, I would have lost my shit. Like this would have been like my favorite album. It would have been blared loud as fuck in my room. My mom probably would have got pissed off. I would probably mouth off to her and then I'd end up grounded, but it's cool because I would still have this album. This is all about riffs and energy. I do think it is like a little bit stripped down, but honestly, like this is one where I feel like they just trimmed the fat. They got close to the meat, but they didn't take off much. Maybe they could have seasoned it with some more like leads and such, but honestly, you know, again, I really didn't care. Like this was just all about the riffs and the fun and the grooves, and this album's an absolute banger. If you're a longtime fan of this band, you're gonna like this. If you loved Scriptures, you're gonna love this one too. But also, if you're a fan of Bolt Thrower, Obituary, Jungle Rod, God, man, like Frozen Soul, Creeping Death, like there's a little bit of that in there too, with like kind of that hardcore infusion at times. Check this album out. Welcome back again, Benediction, and I am absolutely stoked to see you guys at Maryland Death Fest. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They were only 99 cents, and our Lone Perk is doing a members-only stream, which we'll probably do at some point in this month. Not sure what we'll talk about. Generally, it's pretty fun chit-chat, but who knows? We might do a themed one. Maybe that might take a little bit more planning. John's been kind of like laid up with a virus. He just got his car fixed, and then he got sick. I don't know what he did. He hit a leprechaun on the way home from work, and like all of his luck has been absolutely shit. But things are going to turn around. You're going to see him back on here again. He just needs some time to recuperate. But anyway, memberships are still the main way to support the channel. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our hats and shirts. That is linked down below in the video description. And if you would like to join this channel, there's a join button down there for you to punch and yell at and scream and start a circle pit around. You can't really do that. That seems impossible. But you can hit it, and as long as it says, hey, I joined, you did it right. And of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following. All that shit means the world to us. It is, again, amazing to see this channel grow. We have a ton of content planned for you. We just got to kind of get together for it. John's got to be virus-free for a minute. And we are legit within 2 months of going to Maryland Death Fest. So, yeah, any of you people out there going to Maryland Death Fest, keep an eye out for us, because we will 100% be there for the entire fucking thing. But yeah, thank you guys so much for everything, and we will catch you later.